Welcome. I'm Phyllis Zimbler Miller. This is an edition of Israel at War. It's day 146. I have with me a very special guest with a very special story, which you will hear in a moment. His name is Dan Perry. He's a communications professional and world affairs analysis on numerous news shows, including I-24 News, and he's the former head of AP, Europe, Middle East, and Asia. And as a side note, as a Wharton alum myself and a daughter who's a Penn alum, he's a board member of the Penn Wharton Club in Israel. Anyway, welcome. And now, Dan, you get to tell your Twilight Zone Amazon experience story that I first read about in an article in the Forward yesterday and said, I have to have this guy on my show. Go ahead.
Well, I never thought, I'd be presenting as a victim of of something or other. But what happened is I ordered a book by one of my favorite authors, Herman Koch from Holland. I don't have a lot of contemporary favorite authors, so I looked forward to receiving this book. When it arrived at my apartment in Tel Aviv, it was clearly used.
Arrived from Amazon.
Arrived from Amazon to my apartment in Tel Aviv. It was clearly used for two different reasons. One is many pages were folded clearly by a previous reader. And the other is that there was this weird red splotch on the bottom of it that clearly was a drop of something that affected about 20 pages. I don't know if it was blood, human or otherwise, or red ink or whatever, but the book was clearly used. So, especially because of the potential blood issue, some people in my apartment were agitated, and I couldn't keep it. So I tried to organize some version of restitution on Amazon to get it to get a refund or to get it replaced, but the site doesn't really work well with that context and basically requires you to send the original item, which offended me because it's obviously no longer sellable and it's wasted effort and it is some effort. I ended up calling customer service, which is a drag these days. And so the first level of my complaint is, customer service at all these huge corporations, be they commercial or banking, it really is just awful. With the voice menus and automation, and it tends to be just infuriating. In the end, I got to a human, and it was a very nice lady with what I could assess to be an Indian accent. And she was sympathetic and solicitous and efficient. And she told me she could replace the book and not involve me in the difficulty and logistics of sending back the unusable book. And then she asked for the address. Now, of course, they had the address because she could see my order, but she asked for it. And I told her. And then there was some typing on a line, and then
wait, let's clarify for people. He told her his address in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
in Tel Aviv, where I'm currently based and where I have lived for different periods of my life. And then after some typing, there was some awkward silence, and then she said, something like, I don't see that address on the map. I only see Palestine." And then the line went dead. Now, the first level of annoyance is that you go through all this trouble to get to a human being on these customer service lines, and then it's a wasted effort on an international call, by the way. But then I realized it took me a couple of seconds, but I must have been slow on the uptake. But it was clear that she had made a political statement, and at that point, I think my annoyance was equaled by my appreciation of the fact that I somehow was personally involved in a pretty good story. Journalists, and I've been a lifelong journalist, are observers generally. It was kind of exciting to be part of the story. It really is unbelievable. Think about it. It's almost touching that she should take such a risk, because I would think she knows. She sounded intelligent. She could probably end up being identified. And clearly it's a violation of Amazon's policy. They do serve Israel. It was not the first book that I received from them. So I called Amazon back and went through the same rigmarole and got to another person who's also in India. He confirmed it. He was also somehow able to see that his predecessor in servicing me was also in India. For all I know, it was the same call center. And, he apologized and he resolved the issue. And I asked him how this could be, how it could be. And he professed his own stupefaction. And then he gave me the email for the PR department of Amazon. And I checked on the site. And so I have the email and I emailed them asking them to explain how such a thing could be, that a person is denied service because they're in Israel for whatever reason. Um, and here's the thing, over a month has passed. I sent several emails and I haven't replied. And now there's an article in the forward that I wrote. So look, I see here, it's amazing that they're not more embarrassed, frankly. You could attack this a number of ways. You could say, well, inefficiency. You could say customer service is pretty terrible everywhere. Um, but of course, it's actually quite rare that personal political opinions cause such a breakdown. It's kind of a singularity. And the question is, why why the woman thought she could get away with it, why Amazon seems indifferent. I mean, I'd have to think by now they've seen the several emails. I'm sensing that all this attaches somehow to a lowering of the bar in the case of Israel. It's obviously a violation of policy, but you don't really react to every violation of policy. Some are more forgivable than others, and I'm sensing that this somehow, as I say, attaches to a lowering of the bar in the case of Israel, that a denying of service to someone in Israel is no longer beyond the pale quite to the degree that it might have been, and that makes it a political issue. You could say, some would say that this is because Israel is going too far in its actions, be it in the West Bank or now with the Gaza war. And it changes obviously because of the Gaza war to the extent that this is a dynamic. And others obviously would say it's just, all of that is an excuse for anti-Semitism. I myself tend to come down somewhere in between. I mean, yeah, I think Israel kind of is ignoring public opinion to a degree that is dangerous, but of course it's in a very difficult position as well since October 7th. Um, I also see a far wider point, bigger than Israel, and bigger even, if this can be believed, than Amazon, which is, I think all this somehow slots into this zeitgeist now of the far left and also really of the far right, where we're all treated as members of collectives. Where you are who you are because of supposed identities that are unchosen in many cases, and there's not that much respect for the classic liberal idea, fundamentally the centrist idea, that we're all individuals. And the movement in that regard has been on the far left, obviously, in recent years with the progressive movement in the West. So that's where the change is really happening. And I don't know. I could be wrong about all this stuff, and maybe I'll get a huge apology and $1 million compensation tomorrow. But I'm not exactly holding my breath.
So here's what I don't understand. It would have been so easy for the PR department to just send you an email. I'm sure they have it written out. They don't even have to write it, saying, I'm very sorry that this happened. I mean, that's all it would take. So that's what upsets me as a outside observer. I started my life as a newspaper journalist. I'm older than you are. So my point is, to me, this is a story too. I mean, why let it get out of hand? Now I'm going to post this interview in places, and I'm going to challenge Amazon and Twitter. By the way, full disclosure, I'm a Amazon Prime cheerleader. I mean, since I'm a huge book buyer and stuff, I get a lot of stuff. So it's not that I'm against Amazon. It's the opposite. I'm very upset about Amazon. So,
How these companies do their own PR is often not that impressive. You can always say that the scale of what they deal with is so great that stuff falls between the cracks and they can't respond to everyone. But even though that's never provably false, I have a sense I have a sense that offenses done unto Israel right now do not reach the same level of urgency as some other cases. It's the same phenomenon I think we saw with the college presidents from our own school, Penn, and from MIT, and from Harvard just a couple of months ago, where they were really kind of quibbly and legalistic about the issue of threats of genocide against Jews. And they had a point, technically, of course. But you got to wonder if they had taken that approach, if the issue at hand was dealing with calls for restoration of slavery, or for a ban on gay marriage, or for permissiveness with pedophilia. My guess is they would not have been quibbly about it, and they would have taken a more moral stand. And I suspect we're seeing the same phenomenon here. This really isn't about Amazon. I love Amazon. I think we're talking about a phenomenon in the global approach towards Israel and Jews that really, really needs addressing. And I'm being very careful to not say who's more to blame.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
not sure I want to absolve Israel of all blame. The situation in the West Bank, with the settlements in particular,
right.
is
I don't talk
indefensible.
politics, not what my shows are about.
Understood.
But no, that I'm just saying. But let me give you another example. I've read the Wall Street Journal ever since I was a journalism student at Michigan State, and it doesn't mean I agree with everything. Excellent opinion. No, excuse me, editorial, not an op-ed piece in today's print journal about the horrendous mob action at Berkeley. I don't know if you're following it in Israel, but it was Monday night, February 26th. And as good an editorial as it was, since I interviewed yesterday the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Communications and PR at Berkeley about the episode, so I had the horse's mouth. They left out, the editorial left out, it just said that Jews were harassed, Jewish students, as they entered the venue, which had been changed to try and prevent this, by the way, that's an aside. They left out, and the news clips show this, that the protesters broke glass. They actually got into the building and were trying then to open the door to let everyone in. It was much more violent than even the Wall Street Journal, which is a staunch a supporter of Israel, I feel, didn't go the whole way in saying what really happened. So I think this is a real issue about what's being reported and how it's okay even to support Israel, but not yet say really what's going on in many cases.
I think you're right. The permissibility of denigrating Jews and saying truly horrible things about Israel unchallenged is a distinctly different thing that has become quite clear and very acute in the past several months. I have to tell you, if we can't discuss the political reasons why it's happening, then we're a little bit hobbled here. There are reasons why it's happening, but I do accept that one of them is classic anti-Semitism. There's almost no doubt about
it. Well, I don't mean to hobble you. It's just what my particular bent is. I will tell you, and I work at the grassroots level and trying to get people to speak up. So I got a really nice email from someone who I had shared yesterday's podcast with, which I then BCC'd on when I wrote letters to the editor, to the Wall Street Journal today, very nicely, saying that I appreciated the article and sending the link to the 15-minute interview to explain that they didn't go far enough. And I said something like, the last sentence was, this isn't just anti-Semitism, it's mob rule.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I mean, a lot of the indications of where the winds are blowing in this regard come from social media, where you definitely have a version of mob action for sure. And in that regard, realistically, the Jews and their classic supporters just don't have the numbers online. So it's overwhelming, and especially on TikTok, the algorithm notices that and therefore promotes anti-Israel content.
Yes.
And when you see the results of it, it's truly, I mean, it really, really is effective, put it that way.
Yes, actually, I want to do a plug for something that someone told me in one of the interviews. It's very important. Oh, no, I remember. It was actually out of Israel, probably in I-24 News, right? Within a few days after October 7th, social media experts said, don't respond to the negatives. because all that does is push it up in the algorithm. Only respond to the positives. And I think that's very important. I think many of us respond to the negative, right? But it's not going to help. It's not going to change those people. We need to promote the positive.
Look, if you think about why it looks like the world is so much more berserk than it was about a decade or a decade and a half ago, it clearly correlates to the age of social media. You can try to respond only to the positive, but in a whole variety of ways, social media exposes the reality that people are more drawn to loudness, to extremeness, to outrageousness than to subtlety, moderation, and truth. It's just true. Whether in response to it or whether in opposition to it or in support of it, whatever it is, the more ridiculous something is, the more it gets traction. And short of really forcing a change on the social media companies, I'm not sure how we're going to fix this. And the result is radicalization all over the world in every single country, including Israel and including the US. The echo chambers cause that. The algorithms that favor what gets traction causes that. The fact that everyone has the send button and is a publisher, and people who are bad faith players seem to be more likely to use it than your average normative person. All of this attaches to human nature. So we're looking at something that's a real challenge philosophically, which is a neutral system whose algorithms seem to be reasonable in how they're built has exposed something about human nature that is causing damage. And we can't change human nature. And the algorithms seem fundamentally fair, except the result is catastrophic. So this is genuinely a political and philosophic and business challenge.
And I will just add, as we come to a close, that also would help if people read, because they'll see the first few words of a post and will often share it without realizing they perhaps have shared something the exact opposite of what they believe. But they're so excited, but go.
So people normally complain that our kids don't read books. You're saying they don't even read the full post.
No, nope. I mean, and in fact, when I write emails to people, I try, knowing that people don't even read their emails well, when it's really important, I try and figure out how to make it so easy that they can actually read when I'm writing or when I'm saying.
As journalists, I suppose this validates our long-standing obsession with the lead.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Anyway, I thank you so much. I want to tell the audience that he has a Substack channel, correct? It's a channel called Ask Questions Later. It's danperry.substack, like SUBSTACK.com. I will put it in the description of this podcast when the podcast goes live. And I want to thank Dan for fitting me in to his busy day and my busy day, because I really think this is important to be on the lookout and to call out when a company like Amazon allows its employees to say what they said to Dan. And it's our responsibility to speak up against anti-Semitism and all hate. And also, as I've been ending all Israel War episodes, I say, please bring them all home as soon as possible.
Amen.